Thanks so much for
Hello.
joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. Regan Brown works at AW Companies, a recruiting firm we've been working with for a while now. And I've always enjoyed my conversations with you, Regan. You know a lot about this business, and you guys are doing some really interesting work over there. So thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So to kick this things off, we always kind of like to know how folks got into recruiting. It's an interesting profession. There's no degree for this, right? But it's something that many people fall into. I guess I'd love to hear your story of how you got into recruitment.
Yeah, absolutely. So my getting into recruitment was kind of by accident almost. I guess you could say that it's in my bloodline because my mother, my father, my brother, it's kind of been a whole family affair and we were all at different firms. And about 4 years ago, we decided, hey, instead of work for other people, why don't we team up and do it ourselves? Because we all have individual skill sets. So it's been exciting, kind of challenging. So we are a woman-owned firm located in Edina, Minnesota, actually.
Okay.
So my mother is the CEO, and my brother is director of operations, and I do kind of a full desk sales and recruitment piece of it. So I actually started in 2013, actually as a temp recruiter on a temp payroll because my boss didn't want to hire me full time until I proved myself, and then ended up, doing a round robin of training, did a little bit of accounting, finance, call center, high level executive search, office admin, and then ended up settling in light industrial, actually. So fell in love
Okay.
with my team in light industrial and ran a couple offices throughout Chicagoland. And then when we said, hey, let's start our own firm, and my mom started this firm, and kind of the rest is history here. So I've been with AWs for about, I think I just hit my 3 years now. So it's been pretty
Fantastic. So what's it
exciting.
like working with family? I assume you guys get along and
Ye-
yeah.
Yeah, most days, right? So it's always interesting working with family. I'm very lucky to have a really solid team around me. My family's very competent, and we're all philosophically aligned, so that's fantastic, right? I'm a little bit of a rule breaker, so I'm probably more frustrating to work with than it is for me to work with them. But overall, we just have a team of folks who have been in the industry for a long time and are really committed, and it's been a lot of work, but it's been a lot of fun.
Well, and it's neat that each of you have your own roles so that maybe there's less conflict about who does what if everybody's good at different things. What you mentioned, you're running a full desk, so are you bringing in new recs and then filling the jobs as well? And how does it talk to me about that? Where do you spend most of your time, or how do you
Yeah,
figure that
absolutely.
out?
So it depends on week to week, right? So my love is talking to people. So I'm usually probably about doing half time on each, half sales, half the recruiting piece of it. Partially because it hasn't always been that way, but partially because the market is so hot right now. If you own the candidates, you own the market. So being able to have a little bit of variety of kind of learning the landscape of what's going on, not only
Yeah.
as we're going through COVID and the pandemic, and the shift in the culture of what people are looking for is changing. So you can really become a better partner for companies if you understand, kind of what are people looking for and being able to articulate that to your clients.
That consultative approach, you know the market, you know what candidates want, you're giving those kind of that advice, right, to clients
Right.
about moving quickly or making better decisions or faster decisions, and you're not waiting. And yeah, that's timing is everything right now. I think timing has always been a big part of recruitment, right? Timing is everything for people looking for new work and getting that offer out before the competition gets the offer out and things like that. But
Well,
I feel like there's a heightened sense of that right now with if you flip that open to work toggle on LinkedIn, I mean, you're going to get inundated by folks pinging you. And then it's
mhm.
about how to engage or stand out versus just sourcing, I guess. Does your firm have a separate, say, sourcing team that's doing the research or doing the candidate outreach versus then the phone screening or the submittals? How do you divvy that up in your on your team? Or
Uh, Again, we're a little bit of a smaller firm.
okay.
So in our corporate recruiting side, we have about 8 people in total. So a little bit smaller in regards to some of the other, major players in some of the accounting and finance space, like the Robert Halfs and whatnot, right? So it depends. So we have some folks who are really great at doing the sourcing and the finding of folks, and then other folks who are really good at doing some of that candidate interview as well as talking to
Okay.
clients. It's, again, a very collaborative approach. We have 2 daily powwows at 8:30 and 3:30 every day where we say, what do we've got? Where are we going? What do we need to do?
That's
What are the
great.
blockers?
2 a day. That's pretty, I mean, I've heard of daily stand-ups and things like that to motivate or keep things moving, but that's great. That's good communication, and everybody works remotely probably. So different locations. Okay.
Yep.
Well, I love your point about talking to people. I mean, obviously with Honeit, we're big on that. We think those conversations with hiring managers, those intake calls are really important and full of information, just like those daily phone screens and things like that. So I love your point about those relationships and rapport with the candidates are that competitive advantage, right? And I think we've seen a lot of tools and technology in our space that are trying to get away from the conversation. I love that you're leaning into the conversation. That's something that we think a lot about. I wanted to talk a little bit about recruiter experience, in terms of this being a kind of a tricky profession, right? It's a bit of sales, it's a bit of marketing. We've got clients, we've got candidates, we've got lots of recs, lots of competing priorities. What are your thoughts on how, or have you found ways at your firm, or when you think about your team or people that report to you and things like that, how do we clone our best recruiters? How do we create a better or a less tedious experience? How do we keep people motivated? I love the daily stand-ups, but like burnout, like it's this real thing in the world of recruitment where you get to the end of the day and you're fried. I was curious if you have any tips or techniques for your team, or to kind of keep fresh and stay motivated.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's a lot to unpack there. There's a couple different things that we do, actually. So I don't know if you know this about us. So part of our business, we do 3 different things, right? We're a traditional staffing firm with accounting, finance, call center, office admin. Another section of our business is a business process outsourcer for call centers. So work at home contact centers, typically inbound folks, right? And then the third piece of it is we're a certified partner of a behavioral analytics tool called Predictive Index. So essentially what that is it's measuring people's natural drives and understanding what makes them tick and how to keep them motivated, right? So understanding, can you do a job for a long time and stay motivated, and being able to communicate effectively with your teammates. So we do not hire internally without using that tool, right? The whole reason. Yeah, absolutely. So, and there's lots of really great tools on the marketplace. Predictive Index is one of the only ones that's validated specifically for hiring, which is part of the reason we brought it under our wing, as essentially kind of like an additional service that we can provide in what we like to call talent optimization, right? Anything to do with people, keeping people motivated. So we are constantly, checking in on each other, making sure that we're actually assigning tasks based on, what people's natural strengths are. My natural strength is communicating with people. I don't follow a whole lot of rules, unfortunately. So I do have some colleagues that I pair with that are high detailed, high formal, high, structure and process. So we lean on each other that way and say, hey, you know what? I have 5 people I need to do paperwork with. Can you go and do the paperwork? And if you have folks you need to do phone screens with, why don't I take those folks for you? And we really kind of readjust, hence those daily stand-ups, right? Another piece of that is just overall communicating, right? So if something's overwhelming, perfect example, yesterday, I got done yesterday. I tried to close my computer at 4:45, which was a mistake. I kept getting phone calls to set up final interviews, offers until about 7 p.m. yesterday, right? So we decided next week for one of our colleagues' birthdays, we're all virtual, right? Hybrid virtual model. We're going to do a happy hour, right? So, or sometimes we do like, hey,
hybrid happy hour. Like a virtual
happy hour. Okay. Yep.
Gotcha. Cool.
Grab whatever you want to, and let's have a happy hour for the last 30 minutes, hour of the day, right? We've done, if we hit certain goals, we have where you can go and do floating PTO. We're taking half days off in summer hours, which is what we did this summer, which was kind of fun, but also motivating to hit our goals and everything. And really, it's just kind of, hey, what's going on? Are you frustrated? What blockers can we do? My director of operations, Tyler, is absolutely wonderful of, if he needs to jump in and help with the recruiting or help strategize on certain conversations with clients. It's overall just a really transparent, what do you need to be successful and how can we make sure that you're
Everybody
happy?
lending a hand, going up +1. I love that idea of like, you got your job at the, +1
Yep.
in certain areas to help each other. That's fantastic. You said when you were talking about the indexing tool around talent optimization, that sounds really interesting. Can you talk a little bit more specifically about how the tool works, or how you implement that service or do that kind of research, or perform that
Yeah.
survey or whatnot? And then I love that you actually eat your own dog food in terms of, using the tool to hire your own employees. I think that speaks volumes that people kind of do what they say, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting because I always tell people that I drink my own Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole reason we got into this is because my father was a client of them back in the 80s, right? And he went to semi-retire because he's like, hey, you guys got it. You don't really need me to do much. And he has a lot of energy. And my mom said, hey, I need you to get out of the house a little bit because you're going to drive me crazy. And he found out that he could be a certified partner of Predictive Index. So that's how we ended up kind of taking this under our wing. But I mean, there's a couple different pieces of it. First piece of it is a behavioral assessment. So measuring those natural drives in somebody. Can you do a position for a long, long time? And will you feel motivated by that? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we use that in regards to our hiring, in regards to coaching, in regards to creating teams, in regards to identifying who is going to spearhead certain initiatives for our company. Right. So everything that we do, we're always taking a look at who is everybody and what would make them the most happy, as well as most effective, right? Because it's nice to, after 6 months, a year, 2 years, you finally start to learn, okay, well, this is how Nick communicates and this is how he likes XYZ, whatever to happen, right? It's much easier to know that on the front end, especially with your internal team. It takes away a lot of the heartbreak. And some people have a natural ability to be able to do that. I personally don't. So it's nice for me to have a scientific based tool to be able to say, okay, well, here's some tangible things that I can walk away with to be able to communicate with these folks.
I would think the onboarding process can be accelerated too, though, if you know someone. I mean, this gets kind of like learning styles and things like that, right? If you're gonna learn processes, is it a structured bullet point format, or is it a workflow or a video that you watch to quickly learn how something works? Like, I would imagine, as companies scale, that they can start to apply some of those techniques and the different materials or trainings that they. Yeah. Now, would you say with a hiring manager, for example, would you test them on the system to figure out what the hiring manager's profile looks like, and then to let them know that and think about, do you want someone to hire to be similar or opposite to supplement your skill? I mean, is that the idea that you can?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, you're already an expert, right?
Well,
so there's
I'm just guessing. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. So think of it from hire to retire, right? So when we're talking about hiring somebody, obviously you need to know who people are, but taking it one step further is, what type of behaviors do we need to be successful in this role as it is? So let's say we're hiring for an HR manager, right? So you go and there's a quick questionnaire, it takes 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes to do. We have a conversation of strategically aligning folks. We call it a reconciliation meeting, making sure everybody's aligned in ideal behaviors. Do we need them to be more independent and a little bit more assertive, or are we looking for somebody who's more collaborative? Do we need them high on rules and structure, or do we need them to be comfortable making decisions in ambiguous situations, right? Introspective as opposed to processing externally, right? So there's a lot of different things that you can kind of craft, and nobody's, the thing is that you don't want to match to somebody that's absolutely perfect, because I mean, to match to something that's absolutely perfect to a profile, it's more so everybody's perfect the way they are, and how do we coach certain behaviors out of people, right? Depending on what we need. Perfect example for me is I get coached quite a bit on pulling up my details, right? Being more structured, more process oriented, right? Those types of things. As opposed to somebody who you might have in a different sense, the colleague, that I work with that's highly detailed focused. When we're looking for a position, we can say, hey, here are the 3 top things. They don't need to be 100% every single piece of what you're looking for. Here are the top 3 things. So with that, what you can do is you can find that ideal job target behaviors that you're looking for success. And you can actually translate that over to coaching guides or identifying somebody for a position or saying, hey, here's maybe somebody in your organization that fits these natural behavioral drives that you're looking for. Have you thought about potentially career pathing these folks up? There's a couple different things that go into it. Head, heart, and briefcase, right? We call it
cool.
Head, heart. So, but it's different ways. Perfect example, right? I worked with a manufacturing company in Chicago, and they were looking to hire somebody at a plant in, I think it was Alabama, somewhere in that region. And they had a couple shortlisted folks. And I said, hey, these people probably aren't the best behavioral fit, but there is somebody in this plant in Chicago that could be. Have you thought about career pathing him for a plant manager? And they go, you know what? We haven't, but that actually makes a lot of sense. And they've started to do that grooming for him. So it's just a different way of looking at things.
Question. I mean, have you applied? I love that if you come up with those competencies or those things that you're looking for, have you then applied some of those questions to the call guides you're using? I mean, is that the idea where you can take it to actually those custom phone interview guides to dig into those custom competencies and then be able to output that back to the client kind of full circle? Interesting.
Absolutely. So there's something called an interview guide in the predictive index system. So I've actually used some of those questions on the interview guide for my honets for staffing clients that are also predictive index clients.
So that could be a package, right? You're kind of packaging this full. I'm now connecting the dots. You're offering the service to fill the job, but if they believe and understand the predictive index model and understand the philosophy there, you bake that into the intake call, to the screening process, to the submittal workflow. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all intertwined. So really what we've been doing this year specifically too, we've had a lot of growth, which has been great, knock on wood for that. But it's really been focusing on, yes, we're good at what we do, but how do we become more efficient? How do we become more effective? How do we become better partners? How do we add value? And that's part of the reason that we've adopted Honeit is it's just such a great tool. Our clients are so impressed when we say, hey, we send people over with sound bites, with the summary, with the resume as well. It's a nice little link. You click into it. We've gotten amazing feedback, even from clients that we were a little bit nervous that maybe they wouldn't like it. They've been just absolutely blown away by it. So
wow. Thank you. Yeah, we've been so happy to see your team grow, and we love working with the smaller niche, innovative, nimble recruiting firms out there, like yourselves, that are realizing there's new ways to do things. There's better ways to do things. We'll talk to bigger companies about, innovation, and everybody gets bogged down with, flow and process and integration and aren't even willing to try. So, I mean, when you say, oh, I'm a rule breaker and I like to, that's probably why we're working together, because you were willing to try something. You were a risk taker and said, oh, maybe, I'm good at my job, but maybe there is a better way or a new way to do something. So, I mean, we love those kind of personalities because it always takes someone on the front end to say, oh, I'll try it. Seems reasonable. Let's try it.
Right. And really, that's what it is in our daily stand-ups and our leadership meetings. It goes, hey, this isn't working. We could try this. Well, let's try it. What's the worst that could happen? We're unsuccessful. And then we try something different.
Yeah. I mean, and that probably is a personality thing. I mean, maybe we need to use your tool to figure out our target persona for recruiters.
Yeah.
You know what
absolutely.
I mean? Like the folks, and it makes sense that people working at maybe smaller companies or startups have that risk versus reward edge, that are willing to try new things. People working at a big company like that structure, and nope, these are the tools that have been pre-approved by our IT team, and that's all I can use. And sorry, no, like this is your life. Work smarter. Like, come on now, take it. Right. Let's pivot a little bit. What are you thinking? How, you work in light industrial, that's kind of your focus. What are you seeing in terms of those areas? I mean, light industrial, if I'm not mistaken, some of those areas did not close during COVID, right? That keeps the economy moving, shipping, getting things to where they need to be, warehouses, all of that infrastructure, right? So what have you seen? I mean, were those jobs, were you still hiring through COVID? Are you seeing any changes now with the new Delta stuff? Kind of where are you seeing hiring, recruiting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So a lot of my predictive index clients are in that light industrial, distribution, manufacturing, warehousing, logistics, right? So I haven't been recruiting on the actual industrial positions for a while, but
Okay.
because I have connections with those companies, we've helped with the PI piece of it. It's been, I mean, people can't find people quick enough, right? We just had another client that raised their pay rates $4 or $5 and are still having people snatched out from underneath them. If you look at, you know, a lot of our focus for the hiring piece of it has been a lot of the accounting and finance piece of it, which, you know, is a definitely a different struggle, still a struggle, but different struggle. So you're hearing a lot of companies where they're starting to say, hey, you know, we want to come back to the office. You know, we talk to candidates where they say, please get me out of my house. If I have to talk to my family for another 8-hour day, I'm going to go crazy. And then you talk to other folks where they say, if you make me go into the office 5 days a week, I'm going to quit. Right.
Right.
So it's really interesting because there's definitely been a philosophical shift for candidates. It is a candidate market, and I think companies are starting to feel that, right? You know, you hear a lot of folks talking about labor shortage, and you know, I went and I saw a video the other day was like, my employer better use its labor shortage voice with me, labor shortage tone with me, right? Saying, give me flexibility, give me the compensation I'm asking for. What does your benefit package look like, right? What does your company culture look like? So I think it's creating a lot of pressure for organizations to take an introspective look and say, not why should I hire you? It's more so of why you should work for me, which is a totally different conversation than it was 2-3 years ago.
That's an interesting spin on it. It's the same question, but you're right. The tone is you know, that brings me back to this world of interviews. You know, we feel like interviews are two-way conversations, right? Candidates are interviewing companies, companies are interviewing candidates, and depend on that supply and demand flow, you know, one might lean hard the other. When things were crazy and jobs were scarce, companies were asking candidates to pre-screen themselves or pre-interview or a second step of the application process or all these hoops. And you're like, what are you like? Maybe it's a filtering problem. You know, I think on the other side today, though, to your point, it's a candidate driven market. If a company is asking you to apply, you know, spend an hour on an application and then do this or that, and then do this or that before they're willing to talk to you, it's like, see you. But to your point, not even about the process, but about the tone and the community, like that. You're right, and I would imagine that's probably hard for companies to scale and to like standardize. Like, what are the ways to present our company now? What words? What phrases? What that gets us excited when we think of conversation intelligence. Of like, you know, what are recruiters saying on the phone? Many times you don't know how a recruiter's pitching a job or pitching an opportunity or explaining a benefits package and things like that. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there. And are you, I mean, your company's growing. So, I mean, that sounds like business is good, and you must be doing a lot of the right stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, thank goodness business is great. I mean, it's a good time to be in recruiting because everybody's hiring, right? So now it's about shifting the conversation to, again, the consultative approach. I'm sure you probably recognize a tone here, a consistent message with me. But now it's about saying, hey, realistically, what can we do? And realistically, how can we help? And it's a lot of education, right? Perfect example. We just had a conversation with a company up in Minneapolis where they said, hey, I need to hire an admin for $18 an hour, temp to hire, you know, 3-month contract. And we said, probably good luck. That's probably not going to happen for you. Realistically, you're looking at up to $23, $25 an hour, long-term contract. And why would they want to work here, right? Do they have the ability to potentially come full-time? Do they have the ability to, you know, potentially grow? All of these different pieces of it. It's, I mean, the piece of it is that any recruiting is about volume. How many conversations are you having and how many quality conversations are you having? So how efficient and effectively can you actually go and generate conversations with folks to be able to identify, hey, this philosophically aligns with what you're looking for. We don't have a whole lot of fall off with the people that we place just because I feel like we take it a different level of saying, okay, well, I'm not going to start off and tell you about this job. Like, what do you want? Like, does this even make sense? Is this a fit for you? I just had, I'm having an offer come out here today for an accountant up in Minneapolis. And I said, hey, they're going to give you the exact money that you want. They're going to bring you on direct hire. You know, it sounds like the interviews went well. If they offered this to you, would you accept? And he goes, I might. He goes, I have another company offering me more, but what is their benefit package? What is the opportunity for growth? What is the career pathing? Will they budge on being flexible of working hybrid, right? 2 years ago, that wasn't the case at all. So it's a different conversation with everybody. And it's about, I actually heard another gentleman in accounting, finance, recruiting said to me, he goes, hey, you can't get mad at me. I don't make the market. I just report the market, which I thought was pretty clever.
That's interesting. So in terms of your consultancy with the client, though, with this particular situation, this candidate hit the offer with your firm, your client versus the other offer, do you think will your client be a little more flexible now that you've had conversations? So that's the straw that's going to lean them this way. Is that what we're saying? Fantastic. Yep. So that happened at the consultative intake call, setting the expectations around the current market, having them think about what's going to get that candidate to say yes in 4 weeks time. And now it's here. And so has the offer gone out?
I'm waiting for it. It should come out any minute here. So I'm interested to see what happens. And I mean, but that's all of the conversations, right? Going and saying, hey, if you really want this person, if you come in 2, 3 grand, 5 grand below what they're asking, they're not going to take it, right? If you don't send out the offer right away within 2 days of the interview, you're not going to get them. It's just, it's fast. And it's about, I personally think you get the most success when you're accurately and honestly communicating in general, but on both sides.
And I think about, you bring up some really interesting points. I'm thinking about what used to take, it used to be like one thing that might make a person take a lateral move or take a new job. It might be, compensation. It might be title or responsibility increase. It might be location. And I always used to recommend to job seekers, if you want to change jobs, focus on changing one of those things, right? Don't try to change your role, change your industry, and change your location at the same time. That's going to be hard to find that next job. But if you want to do what you're currently doing somewhere else in a new city, do what you're currently doing, do that for 1.5 years more in the new city, and then you can level up. Or if you want to go from manager to director, stay at the company or stay in the same industry and the same function and the same, and then go for promotion, but I wonder if that's changed now with back to candidate control or offers. It seems like candidates are not only wanting, a lateral move of like, a few K more or a similar title or it seems like the ante is much bigger for companies now. There needs to be like 2 of those things to get a candidate to say yes or something. Yes.
But it's not only money, title, and location, it's company philosophy. It's career path, it's growth.
There's some new spikes that we need to take into consideration beyond just the kind of the core salary comp title, conversation.
Well, if you think about it too, every day we have a significant amount of the baby boomers retiring, and we've started to see an increase of shifting to, I think I saw the statistic the other day, it was 50 or 51% of the workforce are millennials. And the baby boomers are coin operated, pay me more money, right? And I'll do whatever you need me to do if you pay me, right? Coin operated, as opposed to millennials are very big on the why, right? Why do you need me in the office every day? And what's the explanation for that? Because you spent money on the location? That doesn't work for me, right? I had a CPA candidate say, well, why do they want me in the office? And depending on that answer will depend if it's a cultural fit for me. If it's because they just want me in the office, fine. But if it's because the team said that they wanted to be there or we need it for XYZ, whatever, you need to have a reasoning.
Yeah. And you should have a reason.
Yeah.
Decisions should be made based on reasons, and you should feel comfortable sharing those reasons behind decisions. I mean, I think that's that probably should be written. Is that a general business principle or something like that? There should be.
Well,
Yeah.
I think yes, absolutely. But I think part of it is the reason of it needs to reflect of what's good for my employees, not only what's good for my company. And I think that's the shift that people are seeing. I mean, everybody had a clarity break through COVID. They've been working from home. They've been effective. Some people have gotten laid off, right, from companies, and now they're begging for people back, but not offering them anything in return. This has really changed people's philosophy on how they look at work.
Wow. Yeah. I think back on, we always contrast our US versus Europe, and principles around vacation time and parental leave and things like that. And talk about Europeans learning to live, or versus Americans learning to work or something like that, which is a strange juxtaposition. But well, Regan, awesome conversation today. We've really enjoyed working with you and your team, and I love to think that it's a family business that you guys are growing and building together, and that's fun to think of a family of recruiters. I think I love that narrative. We're here if you need anything. You've been a great Honeit customer, and I, again, loved our conversations, and thanks for joining us today on the podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Good luck on the offer. We're rooting for you.
Thank you. Okay. Fingers crossed. All right. Bye.
Cheers.